starts?
Yeah,
There it is.
here we go. Go right ahead.
Okay, so just for purpose of the recording, I'm going to be presenting a diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility draft statement, DIA draft statement, that's based in part on Federal Executive Order, President's Executive Order 14035, and also includes some additional focus on individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And with that, I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see the statement?
That might be my fault. Hold on.
No, no one can see the statement. Okay, let
Okay,
me try
now
that again.
now we can. Well, we did. Try again.
Well, let me share. Maybe if I share my
My screen was still up, so that was my
Oh.
error. So if
okay,
you
so let me try sharing the actual document. Let me know if you can see that.
yes. Can you
Okay.
enlarge it though?
Yes. Let me see if I can.
Okay.
View.
Yes.
Bottom right
700. Let
also.
me see if I can make it go more. Zoom to 150. We'll try. Well, we'll go to 200. Boom.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you can all see that?
Yes, that's probably better
Super.
so we can see this.
So I'll read it. It's not that long. DC Family Support Council DIA statement. I'll go paragraph by paragraph and then open it up for questions or comments on each paragraph. The DC Family Support Council represents individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families throughout the DC metropolitan area. The council is strongly committed to supporting diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility and carrying out our mission. This commitment includes ensuring equitable access to services for all individuals with IDD, including individuals from historically underrepresented or underserved communities who are often denied such equitable access. So that's the mission statement. And typically a DIA statement does address intersectionality and not only is the council here for all people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families, but we also recognize that sometimes, often because of socioeconomic factors and historic discrimination, that some groups may have easier access to those services. So we want to make sure everyone has access to those services. So that's the purpose of this paragraph. Any thoughts on this paragraph?
Not for me.
Can I ask a question? This is Daisy.
Of course, Jason.
In the first paragraph, it seems comprehensive enough, but in recent times, since we're seeing a lot of problems with policing, is there a way that when you're saying individuals with IDD, well, intellectual or developmental disabilities, you could also include as well as DBH's services, behavioral health? Because I really believe a lot of the problems we're having right now in the country and definitely in DC, the policing issue, a lot of times it's in conjunction with a lot of behavioral health challenges that people are having. And I just think it would be, if it were more reminded in every opening about behavioral health support as well. So if you're saying IDD, I'm just thinking behavioral health needs to be written in that.
Daisy.
So
I would
just a suggestion.
No, I would recommend. I mean, obviously it's up to the council. I took this from our mission statement because it is focused on IDD. I would recommend including the IDD focus, but adding in the last paragraph or the second to last paragraph, when we talk about intersectionality, that we also add that we are focused on groups that are sometimes in similar situations or that may overlap, including mental health and neurodiversity, maybe. And that's part of our mission to maybe add it there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just
Would that
hadn't
be
seen it.
Yeah. Because there are people that have dual diagnosis, right? They have IDD and mental health disabilities as well.
I think it's I'm sorry, Rhonda. I agree, and I think it's a good comment. I think we should add something about that. So, thank you, Daisy.
Yes,
No problem.
Next, it says the council adheres to the following definitions of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, as established by the President in Executive Order 14035. I'll go through each definition individually. So, first, the term diversity means the practice of including the many communities, identities, races, ethnicities, backgrounds, abilities, cultures, and beliefs of the American people, including underserved communities. Is there any thoughts about that? One possible change, because I have changed this for some groups where they have a lot of immigrants who may not yet be American citizens. They sometimes change that. You know, it's understandable why the president would focus on the American people, but sometimes that's changed to of the broader DC metropolitan community or something like that. You know, because we may have some non-Americans in this community. So that is one change, but we could also keep it because I think people understand that American in this sense is used in the broadest possible sense. But I was curious, that was one issue I wanted to bring up with the council. What do you prefer?
This is Rhonda. I tend to say we probably need to include, because I know that I serve, you know, those who are not American. I've assisted someone to go through the process to
Sure.
become an American. So it happens they are present, excuse me, in our community. So I'm not sure the wording, but I definitely would suggest that we be inclusive in that way. And I
Okay.
wasn't sure, Craig, exactly how you said that was being
was
done.
kind
I agree. I agree. The one you said earlier, the broader DC
Community?
population, yes, community would be, yeah.
I think we have a very diverse community in DC.
Yes,
so
we do.
I thought that would be good.
Mhm.
Okay, does anyone disagree with doing that? No? Okay, so that's done. Just assume that that's done, because I would like to vote on this today. So
Yes,
that term will now say and beliefs of the broader DC community.
Yes, sounds good.
Let me just think is there another word than community? Because we use communities right after again.
right. Clean-
Population, maybe?
yeah,
I mean, in the city, population, yeah.
Do you
can go
prefer
residents
broader
if you'd
DC
like.
population, or do you prefer including underserved populations? Where do you prefer the population word to be used? With underserved or with the DC?
I'm thinking within DC, because you know there are people that come to DC all the time, well, come everywhere in the country, but I just think that at least if you have that there,
Okay,
yeah, I think it's population, DC population, because underserved is if you want to call it a community, but it's, you know, it's a group of people, right? Population is the broader, you know what I'm saying, all of DC. If that's making sense the way I'm trying to communicate.
okay. So
Do
it'll
you
say
want to say
beliefs of the
residents?
broader DC
I'm sorry, if you all can make sure you mute your screens, that'd be great, or your audio, that would be wonderful. Okay, go ahead. I apologize.
we could either just say of the broader DC metropolitan area, or you know, tying to the first paragraph, or of the broader DC population.
I'm thinking broader DC population.
Okay, so it'll say population and it'll be attached to DC, and we'll word it so that it makes sense. Okay, next one. The term equity means the consistent and systematic, fair, just, and impartial treatment of all individuals, including individuals who belong to underserved communities that have been denied such treatment. And that's a big part of these DIA statements, is to indicate that we recognize that some communities who have been underserved may not have the resources or the wealth or the ability to hire attorneys or things like that to be able to obtain their rights or their privileges that should be provided by the government or law. So does anyone have any edits to the equity?
I was going to ask, this is Adrienne, about, I tend to in my verbiage using the word equitable terms or equitable blanks versus just equity. Equitable seems to have a deeper punch, or significant, you know, it's a little bit more significant, but it's just a thought.
Well, I agree with you. Because it's a diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility program, they typically define what the E stands for in DIA.
Okay.
We could include that,
Okay.
and it includes
That's
acting
fine.
equitably. you know, if you like,
Yeah, that would be great.
in all of our work, you know, or something like, we can add something at the end. If
Yeah,
everyone
that's
agrees.
fine.
Okay.
I agree.
Third, the term inclusion means the recognition, appreciation, and use of the talents and skills of employees of all backgrounds. Often it's focused on disability, but it can also be focused on, you know, any group that's underserved and may not feel included.
Is it employees though? The skills of
Oh,
employees.
you know what? I wanted to raise this. Thank you, Rhonda.
Uh-huh.
This is taken from a DIA order that applies to employees. So we should change that word. And it
Yeah.
should say,
Uh-huh.
and skills of populations of all backgrounds or communities of all backgrounds.
Communities of all backgrounds, at least that's my suggestion, that someone
Yeah.
else may have. And I also want to make sure that those who are not council members, you are welcome to give your input, you know what I'm saying, about what we are putting together. Obviously, the council will vote on it, the council members, but those who are not council members and public attending, you are free to give any suggestions or comments. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that. All right,
Okay.
thank you. Great.
Then the next term is the term, so that'll be changed to communities. Employees will be changed to communities.
Mhm.
The term accessibility means the design, construct. This is a very technical definition. The next, it's longer too, just for everyone listening who doesn't have it in front of them. The term accessibility means the design, construction, development, and maintenance of facilities, information, and communication technology, programs, and services so that all people, including people with disabilities, can fully and independently use them. Accessibility includes the provision of accommodations and modifications to ensure equal access to employment and participation in activities for people with disabilities, the reduction or elimination of physical and attitudinal barriers to equitable opportunities, a commitment to ensuring that people with disabilities can independently access every outward-facing and internal activity or electronic space, and the pursuit of best practices such as universal design. Which, you know, I will say I think it's very important that as a DC Family Support Council dedicated supporting individuals with IDD and, you know, overlapping disabilities such as mental health, that we have an accessibility definition. That's
Definitely.
something
What
we
about
can cite to.
language? Where would that fit in here? Language. Communication, I guess, technology, but I think, I don't know, information. You know, language.
No, I hear
I
you.
mean, we have that definitely within our community, well, any community.
You mean
where
like plain
maybe-
language, like
Yeah.
sort of thing, so that people can
No,
understand? Or the
no,
use
we're
of
talking about-
different languages for people who
Yeah,
don't speak
like Spanish,
Got
you know, those
Oh.
types of accessibility.
Yeah, we should add that.
Yeah.
We should tell the president too, because he probably should have added that. So the, let's see. You're right.
Right, it should be in there somewhere. I don't know where that fits, but it definitely should be off the cuff. I'm not sure,
We
but
could say language and translation services, or we could
Mhm.
say,
something like that. Because we do have, you know, ASL, we have, you know, take assistive technology. I mean, you know what, I mean, there's different ways in which we should be accessible, even with this meeting, which now makes me
Okay.
think we should have captions on right now.
I can turn on the transcript. One note
There
on
we go.
that if you're talking about sort of the legal protections, that those sit different places. So that's just something to think about as you're crafting it. You don't have to do it in a particular way. That's just something that has come up before, and thinking about where those rights sit and are defined.
okay. Well, I think we should add after information and communication technology,
Mhm.
a phrase that's about, you know, translation and
Interpretation. Mhm.
interpretation services.
Mhm.
Okay, so that'll be added. Any other comments on the accessibility?
Again, we have the employment piece again.
There, I thought that it would made more sense, just because it was only mentioned once, and we do want,
Well, equal access, I mean, we do want that to happen for employment, but
we could,
well, I mean, I'm, you know, but we're a, there's another, I don't,
we could add, because usually you see accommodations in employment and in public accommodation, so we could put accessibility includes the provision of accommodations and modifications to ensure equal access to employment, public spaces, public programs, and participation in activity for people with disabilities.
Okay, the public program, okay.
How about something like that? Would that address your concern?
I think it does address it somewhat, but I guess where I am is that we changed the use and skills of employees at the top, remember, of all backgrounds, and we changed, are gonna change that to what? What was that? What would we
That we
change?
changed to, that was too narrow. And so because it made it seem like this only applied to employees. So we said,
Wow, mhm.
we changed it to,
Number 3 bullet.
skills of, communities.
Okay, communities. Okay, so then, okay, with that being said, then equal access to, I mean, in this case, wouldn't it be access to,
I mean, I would still want there to be equal access to employment's a very important.
no, it is, but if we start going, I guess where I'm feeling is that if we start narrowing down to different
Hey,
tasks or
can,
portions of our lives, you know what I'm saying, that then we might be going down. I mean, we would have been saying equal access to transportation. We're not trying to do that. You see where I'm going? So it
But do
has
we-
to be a general, you know,
can you say
or
services?
included. I mean, if we're gonna go down that lane, then we need to say transportation and employment, and then, I mean, you know.
Rhonda,
Yes.
can we say, and services? Wouldn't that incorporate a very broader spectrum of what you're trying to accomplish here? Yeah, to employment and well, services. I'm just thinking that would work better. And
Mhm.
so anyone could
Instead
interpret.
of employment, but
that.
I don't think employment is a service.
Yeah,
No,
exactly,
No,
exactly. Employment is,
participation in activity, no, where it said, the provision of accommodations, I would just think, accessibility includes provision of accommodations and modifications to ensure equal access to services and participation in activities with people with disabilities. I mean, it's just broader, so anybody looking at that, what I'm looking for is something. I don't know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't,
I
but
feel it excludes employment if you use that definition.
Yeah, it does. I think, I do like that you said services though, Daisy. That I think services does need to be included. Equal access to services or
Yeah.
support, employment and participation in activities for people with disabilities. I don't think we should remove the employment, but I think that is,
employment and services, maybe, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's
Just so
what
people,
we're advocating for, right? That
Yeah.
People with IDD and their families can access services through the government agencies. But I guess if you read down the reduction, elimination of physical.
We could say to all aspect, I mean, we could just remove them both and just say, accessibility includes the provision of accommodation and modifications to ensure equal access to, the community and all aspects of life, or all
Yeah.
aspects of the
or
community.
how about
I mean,
all the factors
I-
that contribute to ensuring fairness and inclusivity for all individuals with disability?
What's your suggestion of that? I'm sorry, say again.
Like there are variety of factors. So can we just say all the factors that contribute to ensuring fairness and inclusivity
Okay.
for individuals with disabilities?
so leave it back,
Well,
yeah.
Well, yes, and we do say that up above, but I feel like the accessibility definition is more technical.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
So because as Rhonda said earlier,
Craig, I have a
transportation is huge part, and all government services are a huge part, and also employment is one of them. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Craig, you made another suggestion, and I don't know if you could repeat it again, because it seemed
Sure.
like it was all encompassing, which made sense, versus employment and services. So it sounds like employment is an entity in and of itself. I don't know, it just,
That's what I was thinking. when I
whatever
said
you,
services, yeah.
mhm. But keep going, you guys. I just
Well,
thought I wanted
I'll
to
put
hear
something
that
in
last.
there. I can remove employment. I
Mhm.
mean, we could put something. something about all aspects of society.
Right,
or-
you said all aspect, right, and it was really good. I mean, because I'm sure people have got a good concept of different concepts, if you will.
Yeah, we have,
Yeah, we can just,
yeah.
I gotta continue because I have to go give a speech in 30
Okay.
minutes. So
Okay.
let me, I can change it to employment and participation, pardon me, to ensure equal access to, all aspects of society. The reduction or elimination of physical and attitudinal barriers, just, they don't know we took it out. And a society, all aspects of society includes employment and transportation. And everything.
But
Yeah,
yes,
but,
also-
we can
also
include like employment as one of them, but like
Mhm.
anti-discrimination laws.
I
Physical
agree, but
access-
I don't know if I'd
physical
include that in accessibility.
education, healthcare, employment.
Yeah. I think that comes in more with equity,
Yeah,
Okay,
that's implied with equity.
yeah.
But
with
I
the
think-
non-discrimination obligation.
But I do think the word services does capture healthcare services, transportation services. You see what I'm saying? So services is, and also there was a comment to replace, Shawnee said, don't replace employment, just add services with it. But I think services would cover in, I guess, services, employment, participation in all aspects of life, or something like that you said, Craig. You know what I'm saying? Whatever that all aspects.
Yeah,
I
I'll
think
put
we need
something,
to say services,
broaden it. Okay, services will be in there.
yeah.
I'll send you all an
My
update
belt's on.
after the meeting. And then if everyone's in agreement, that'll be, I would like a vote today approving this in substance
Mhm.
with authorizing me and Rhonda to finalize and send it to all you. And if there's no objection, this
Hello?
to be our DIA statement. Okay, so the council also recognizes the importance of intersectionality, that multiple aspects of someone's identity are all relevant to someone's experiences as an individual with IDD, and that there can be compound discrimination based on race, color, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and other protected categories in addition to disability that must be addressed by our council and the DC government. It is only through the recognition that the council can work to ensure that all individuals with IDD and their families feel welcomed and are able to equitably access services free from discrimination. And then the council welcomes participation in its meetings by all and seeks to achieve its mission for all individuals with IDD and their families. I would suggest that we keep that the same, but we add the point about multiple diagnoses
Yes.
and mental health.
Yes.
And that does that does address the non-discrimination
Mhm.
issue that you raised.
Yes.
Okay, and so I would propose that this, with those edits that have been recorded, that we make those edits and that this be approved in substance with the edits that have been directed. I would move that it be approved in substance with the edits that I've been instructed to make.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
I do believe I need a second, though.
Yeah, second. I second it. Yeah, and then we'll get the final copy, just, when you get an opportunity.
Perfect. And then is there any objection or is it unanimous? Okay, so with unanimous consent. It's approved. Okay, so I will get that done and then we will, one thing I would like to do, if everyone agrees, and Madam Co-Chair, if you agree, I'd like to ask Catherine to post it on our website.
Yep, that'll go up with, we'll put it on the home page if that makes sense for you all. We'll add that to the other kind of homepage resources where we have bylaws and all of those things. Does that make sense for where you'd like it to be?
Yes,
Yeah.
that perfect. And then if I may, is there, Rhonda, I apologize. I am speaking on EEOC's focus on disability in the workplace at 1.
Mhm.
So I have
Okay.
to run. But is
Okay.
there anything you need me for the quorum to vote on?
Well, not at this point, but the issues were that we were going through the committees for the police and the Medicare, you know what I'm saying? So that's what our next agenda item is. if you don't have anything else that you wanted to share with me concerning those items outside of when we met as a committee, executive committee, then we'll move forward.
I have nothing
Okay, all
further,
right,
other than, you know, I do want the chief to come and speak to us.
yes.
So I know we've already started that
Yeah.
process, but I wanna, if you're okay with it, Rhonda and the group, I wanna follow up again. Cause I don't think we've really got it. They've agreed to do it in sense, but they haven't
Mhm.
given us a date.
Yeah, and also, Craig, we want to keep in mind, it probably would be good to make sure that, you know, she'll attend. If it's something like we were doing with Councilman Middleton, we want to make sure that the Developmental Disabilities Council's there because they
Yes,
submitted something already, right?
You're
So
right.
whatever
That's a
the
good point.
case is, if there's only that we meet with them initially, we need to include them because something was already submitted, right? And
You're
just
absolutely
piggyback on that and include what we hear today and what members and public will share with us as comments, okay? All righty, thank
Absolutely.
you so much.
And
I'll
thanks
be in
everyone for the
touch. Well,
feedback. Thanks for the
yeah.
feedback on the DIA statement. I'll get that finished and circulated. And that's great. We did one of our priorities.
Yes, great. Moving right along. Okay, as we move forward, thanks, Craig. As we move forward on our agenda, our next, if then anybody have any questions, we moved through that. Maybe there was questions about other things, that maybe you didn't have an opportunity if you've hopped on, recently, but we did go through that. So we're glad about getting our statement near, in its final form. Well, our priorities, two of the things that other two things that we're working through is our the loss of Medicaid services for many people here in the district. And that's based on the unwinding that process that happened as a result of coming out of the pandemic. And we, as a whole, individually, have heard from DC residents, people with disabilities and their families, about their loss of services, and they're still existing, you know, that people are without services and the complications of trying to get those services back. And so as a whole, the council decided that that would be a priority to strategize on how we work through that situation. Now, it is a big elephant, but what do we do with an elephant? We take it one bite at a time, right? And so that's why we're having this committee work and wanting to hear from you all so that we can break this apart and find out really what are the issues that others are seeing and where the focus should be, because as we know, not only does it mean the loss of Medicaid, but within Medicaid, there are individuals losing services, even though they may have Medicaid, but then they're not getting, having access to the services they need. Maybe the Medicaid, but finding out this therapy or this service is not available to them for whatever those reasons are. If it's there's not enough providers, we know that's happening with nursing, you know, that's an issue. If it's respite, whatever that is, but we really want to make sure that we are hearing from the community, because we definitely have heard, like I said, either our individual situations or hearing from others of the issues they're experiencing. So I wanted to first find out those who are interested, council members or not, just general public, that are interested in being a part of a committee to be able to drill down on this particular priority. So the question is, hands raised or unmute yourselves, you know what I'm saying? About to let me know if you have interest in working through being on a committee. Let me be specific. You could definitely, you know, give your input about, you know, what you're experiencing, what you've heard, but we want to make sure that there is a committee that is focusing on pushing these efforts forward. And I see Adrienne with her hand raised, and and I hope that's where she is stating that she wants to be a part of that committee, unless you want to speak, Adrienne.
No,
Rhonda,
I'm good. I just,
Rhonda, this is Daisy. You know, I don't know how to use the hand in the chat or any of that
Gotcha.
stuff.
Gotcha.
Okay, I would like to be part of that effort to
Okay.
prioritize. I want to be part of it, but I'm just saying it. Okay. So.
Okay, so what we're going to do is that I want us to take 15 minutes on each one of these priorities right now, right? So we have 40 minutes or so left, but I want to be able to work through the committee that will be working together on the loss of Medicaid services or Medicaid, and then also getting input about the work we need to do with the police, or that we need to work together with them on how they're interacting with our loved ones.
Come here. Come here. I'll pick you up.
Okay, make
Come
sure
on.
you read that
hey,
you are.
so this
muted.
is,
Okay, go ahead. If
Okay.
you're speaking to the topic, go right ahead.
oh,
Mhm.
it's just, I was just indicating for the recording's sake that I definitely am interested in the Medicaid issues as well as the police issues. So wherever I can serve best,
Yeah,
I'm interested
me
in both
too.
of those. Okay.
Okay,
Daisy said the same thing on both.
okay. Daisy and Adrienne have shared that they want to participate in both of those committees. Anyone else? Again, you do not have to be a council member to participate in a committee. So you're very welcome, those who are not Family Support Council members, to participate on the committees if you desire so. There will be meetings of these committees, and that will be worked through within the committees of when those meetings may take place. So keep that in mind. There'll be work done to make sure that everyone is accommodated on being able to, or accessible. The meeting will be accessible based on working through everyone's schedules. Anyone else that would like to participate on those committees? While you're thinking through that question, I also wanted to, and I'm finding out where your commitment is to that, council members, please let me know. But I want to make sure, as we have other public members here today, about what have you heard or experienced in the loss of Medicaid, or where you've heard others lose Medicaid or having issues with their Medicaid, period. Is there anyone that would like to share those types of comments or concerns? And I don't think we got anything in anyone's registrations with any specific comments or concerns, so you're welcome to share now. You can raise your hand.
Sure, I'll share.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Sean.
Hi, this is Shawnee. So in working with families who have contacted me about the loss of Medicaid, one of the issues is that they're not receiving the notifications in a timely fashion.
Bravo.
And there's been many reasons. Sometimes it's the postal service. Other times it's because the actual notifications are going to DDS. This is for DDS families. The notifications are going to DDS first. DDS opens them, and then they repackage them in a regular stamped envelope and then send off to the families. So that delay time is crucial in notification as well as resolving the issues. It's also been an issue with the systems aren't communicating effectively. So for instance, if if an individual is receiving services, let's say through Medicaid, and the insurance company is Health Services, the provider can see that the Medicaid is about to expire. However, once we contact DHS and then contact DHCF, they have different dates. So everyone can see these dates, but then there's different dates of an expiration, which causes a lot of issues. And then this is something that that information, the family isn't privy to.
Mhm.
So for some reason, this has happened 3 different times with the systems not actually communicating with each other and revealing the same data.
So what were the 3 again? We have DCH, right?
Yeah,
Which-
so we have a delivery issue where families are not being notified
Got
of the
that.
services being terminated.
Mhm.
And then we have an issue where the information is coming, but it's going directly to DDS, right? It's going to the East Street address.
Mhm, mhm.
Someone there opens the mail. They then repackage it
Mhm.
and send it to the client's address. And then the other issue is the lack of communication between the systems,
And
the
that-
government systems.
Right, and that would be the ones that you've seen, it is DC Health and
Yeah, yes, Department of Healthcare Finance,
Mhm.
and then Health Services.
Okay. In this case, yeah, in those
Yeah.
cases. Well, see that your point is well taken, because with the mail going to DDS first, I mean, if we can't get it to go to the right place, then one of the recommendations is, why isn't that if it goes to DDS and they open it and it is a person that is receiving DDS services, why can't DDS email, call, to
Well,
say,
why can't DDS act on it? DDS has a direct connection with ESA.
right, so why is that? I mean, if this system is gonna continue where they can't deliver to the right address
Yes.
or whatever that is, if it goes to DDS, then why, I guess my other question is this, why aren't they taking it to, instead of putting it in the mail and sending it, and they are a DDS, receiving DDS services, why can't the care manager call and say, this is what we have,
Right.
you have where the date is this,
Right.
so that's another part of this problem as well.
Or
Go
the
ahead.
bigger question is, why is it going to DDS?
Well, that's what I said. They can't fix the initial problem. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
If they can't, if it's
Yeah.
gonna go to them, and for
Yeah.
that fact, and it could be doing the same thing at HSCSN. You know what I'm saying? It could be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's puzzling. And this, to rectify it, it takes almost 2 weeks, literally. And that was crucial for that family because they also had an authorization expiring. So we were trying to do 2 things at one time.
Yeah.
I have a clarification question on that. Does it look like, if you've seen some of these letters, does it look like anything that was going to DDS is a copy that's sent to DDS in addition to somewhere else, or does it look like it's only going to DDS?
It is the actual piece of paper that someone at DDS receives. Now, for this family, theirs was open. Another family, the information was not opened. And then you can see what someone at DDS wrote on it, repackaged it in a regular envelope, and sent it to the client's address. After contacting DHS, the East Street location is also on that individual's Medicaid application, which the family has stated that they didn't do that either. So I get how DDS should be involved, but if they are as involved as we're seeing, they need to be able to have some type of authority to act on what's being required. You only get, so many days for appeal process. You want to know how to do it. You want to know what's actually going on. But this is a huge delay that, in my opinion, is unnecessary. But like Rhonda said, if this is the process, someone at DDS needs to be able to act. direct, whether it's the service coordinator or supervisor, someone. Just simply repackaging it and putting it through the mail to be delivered is not a resolution.
Because services are being lost, you know what I'm saying?
Services are being lost. Exactly.
Medication or whatever. I mean,
Yes, everything, prescriptions,
yeah,
authorizations, and let's not talk about holidays. So if this occurs during a holiday, then that's an additional day, 2 or 3 that the information will be stuck in transit. When, like you said, DDS has different modes of communication for families. So if you contact the service coordinator, they can then say, okay, let me inform this family. You shouldn't have to wait to get it in the mail.
right, because even if it is, like I said, if it's a call, if it's the email, which you open
Right.
up, you know what I'm saying? Here's what we
Right.
received, here's, but I think the repackage and put it in the mail, is a problem. Thank you, Sean. And then the second
And,
thing.
and I
is
think,
that-
Shawnee, can you send me
Oh.
some of that, the information separately about
Sure.
some of the particular cases? Okay. Thank
Sure.
you to
Now,
look
all
into
of these,
those.
I'm gonna tell you, all of these cases have been resolved only because we just kept banging down DHCF. Okay, they still haven't figured out what's going on, but these cases in particular have been resolved, luckily. But I'll send you the stuff so you can review it.
Yeah, because the other thing is just thankful that, they had someone to help them through it, right? So how many families, that may have, this has happened to, that have no idea it's happening yet, or it's happening and didn't know that that's why there was a hiccup. And not to say that all the letters are going to DDS, because obviously our council and what we do is across the lifespan, right? So those are adults, but again, as we stated, there is a health services for children with special needs, and really wonder if that kind of thing's happening there. You know what I'm saying? That they're receiving letters and, repackaging, maybe
letters
not
are.
even making the communication to inform the family or the member. Thank you, Shawnee. So those are already 2 items to include to the committee that is working through that loss of Medicaid services. When you were talking, Shawnee, also the accessibility to the application, right? Of what that process is. I don't know if I know they've had lots of meetings, right? Where they were, you could go to a meeting, I think every week or so, where they would, talk about the actual application and those things. But even getting the information to the Medicaid office and the approval, to make sure when you submit your information, there should be a receipt or something given, a reference number, because I've heard too many comments of where they submitted and then their information was lost. It was said, no, we didn't get it, but so there needs to be some type of confirmation that, I have submitted the information and it's in the system, and there's something you could take away in your hand or email, whatever that is. It says, I submitted the information, it's in you all's hands. Based on that, there's 3 different systems, it sounds like, that are talking to one another or should be talking to one another and have different dates, right? When it's going to expire, or, those types of things. So that's one thing that I would like to suggest, is that when the information's being submitted, that there's some type of confirmation process. Not to mention that the biggest thing is that the systems are talking to each other with the correct information, and every one of those systems saying the same thing, so that there's not continued confusion in the technology of when someone's services are active or inactive. Any other comments about the Medicaid? I think, Daisy, you were starting to say something, I think.
Yes, when Shawnee was talking about, it seems like the systems are not talking to each other. In those initial concerns I submitted to the Family Support Council, one of the main things we were talking about is that the agencies aren't talking to each other? Are they going to finally, connect on that piece itself? But I highly doubt it anytime soon. The other thing to this is right now, it's getting to the point where some agencies are reluctant to admit that this is a problem because they don't have a solution for it. But they need to at least start talking as in tandem. They're supposed to be doing that anyway. But since the government is set up where, well, DC government is set up where they don't have to do that as a requirement, until we get some kind of valid process in place. And nobody's talking about developing that. I'm not saying that we as citizens aren't talking about it, or the support groups that we are in contact with aren't, but the government isn't making an effort to do that. This has been at least it started like September 30th, where they just started dropping people. In 6 months' time, we haven't heard of the efforts they're making to talk to each other. And I think that they should be giving the community at least some acknowledgement that we recognize that this is a problem, but they're not doing that. They're just sitting up here and, they have meetings where come out in the community to re-register or, get set up in the system. It did nothing. It did absolutely nothing. It was very encouraging that day, but they haven't done a damn thing since. I apologize. Point is, we're not hearing anything from the district government on how they're trying to address it yet. And as Shawnee's saying, and a lot of other people that all of us are hearing from, we're wondering, okay, have you all at least met as separate agencies of the district to address the problem? Who is working on it? At least if we could be told something like that, we wouldn't sit here so frustrated. And I'm not just saying us, but the people that we work with as well. Because I can't keep telling people, well, they're working on fixing it when they're not fixing me, well, my issues with my son and I. So anyway, just to say, if they could come back with something, the district government itself coming back, what agencies are looking into this issue? What part of your agency is looking into it with other agencies of the same well, that's it, because I could rant on about it, but I won't. The
Yeah,
agencies
but
are talking
yeah,
to each
you
other.
all you and Johnny definitely have a good point that, what's ultimately what's solution? Right now, we're saying, okay, if you couldn't find the solution, then we're sitting here, work around, which is, it's going to DDS or HSCSN possibly. And then,
6 months, they haven't said anything. The
Right.
agencies have not said, what are they doing?
right.
At this, they've all
So
heard.
the big thing is, what is the solution is what it is. What is the solution, and giving the community updates on what that solution is, because the other thing that I feel
One
like
little update there, or something that we did reach out to DHCF about doing potentially an engagement or presentation for this group around that issue with the what's going on and what do you do if you have a problem. And then also just having a discussion with the community about that. So I am working on that.
okay.
Yeah.
I have a recommendation. I raised my hand. I have a
You did.
potential recommendation. If that's okay, can I go ahead and speak?
Yeah, your hand was raised. You're
Okay,
correct.
great.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So I thought, and I was thinking that it might be an idea for us to implement a potential pilot program, meaning it would not be something that would be permanently in place, where we pull maybe one or two, maximum of three other agencies, but more specifically with what we're addressing now, which is Medicaid and the agencies that are connected to Medicaid, and that we initiate a sit down and a think tank possibly to come up with, just like everyone is saying, what exactly are the solutions. And I think if we had a gathering or a meeting of sorts specifically for this, with the idea in mind that we are the pilot team and that we'd like to look at some of the actual functional instruments and when and where, because one of the things that has been very helpful with me and some of the things that I do is not just to create a timeline, but to actually create a deadline or deadlines. Okay, this is what we're going to do in the next 2 months, and this is the deadline that we're giving ourselves, even if we go over it. But I think that in order for us to push through this, that we need to have some people who are able to make some decisions, or at least are close enough to the people. We don't need a PR campaign. We need people who are then able to either make some decisions or go back to the decision makers and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing, and these are the deadlines that Family Support Council would like to implement for the community at large.
Okay,
I think because if we don't do something like that, we're just going to continue to go around and around and around and around. And we have this great, great organization. And I believe that when we take that, and I don't want to use the terminology aggressive, but if we get a little bit more aggressive about it, and I know that everyone here has the ability to do so, that we might see them, we can hold their folks' feet to the fire, if you will,
yeah. So
diplomatically, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. But part of what you said, we've already moved forward because you know this as it being part of the executive committee is that, and then Catherine just shared as well, that she's working to get them at the table, and as well as we shared today, there's others that need to be at the table to have this meeting. And then Craig and I are meeting with, which is why this meeting's important, is because Craig and I were able to get on Council Middleton's schedule. So just for 20 minutes. So wanted to make sure we had clear bullets from input from you all and the public at large of what exactly we want to quickly be able to share with him concerning the Medicaid, the loss of Medicaid, what suggestions we have. Please, everyone, please make sure you mute your audio if you are not asking a question or giving a comment. So we are making strides in that way. The piece about the pilot part, I'm not sure, exactly. At this point, I don't know if we need a pilot, but I think we need the solution. We need to hear from those individuals that make the decisions. What is the solution to solve these problems? Because it's not going to go away. I mean, everyone's going to have a date where they have to recertify, right? You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to continue to have Medicaid, so we do need what the solution is so that we understand how the process works and we can share with the community and the people we serve and support that this is what you do when this happens, or this is how the process has been corrected or edited so that it goes smoother. And that's the ultimate goal, I believe, that we need to get to with these conversations with those who make decisions. So point well taken as for that. So if there's any other comments, because we meet with him on June 5th. We had comments from other meetings from the council members, but if there's anyone in the public that would want to share anything, that those who are not council members that would like to share any comments that we need to consider sharing with the council member, DD council speaking. Excuse me, DC Council. All right. With that being said, I'm going to move on to, if you have something on it, just raise hand or unmute yourself. Now we're moving on to the police and the interaction that they have with people with disabilities. And as we shared, as we went through the DEAI statement, that we know our community being in intellectual and developmental disabilities also have dual diagnosis of symptom, right? And there are some mental health disabilities as well. And one of the things that when I attended the fire chat with the chief of police, there was some clarity, I believe, needed to exist for the police on knowing there are different ways in which you interact with any person, because we know every person is unique and in different ways to communicate and interact with them. But for them as the police to understand that working with someone with autism could greatly not be the same as working with somebody with schizophrenia, right? So understanding that when we're talking about these communities, that there needs to be training that is across the board of addressing those with disabilities. Obviously, our focus is IDD, because that's what we give the recommendations, but we're not oblivious that some of our loved ones and those in the community who have IDD also have mental health disabilities. So we do need to make sure those trainings and information is given to the police. So question is, as we've shared, or Craig has shared, and we have in the past, at least today, about trying to get, she's stated that she wanted to participate in one of our meetings, just like Middleton did, that he wanted to know more about Family Support Council, that kind of thing. But we're hoping that the police chief will actually come to one of the public meetings so that we could have a one-on-one, in a sense, direct conversation with her, the public, the council, with her. With that being said, though, we want to make sure that we are getting the input of the members in the public on what that looks like, because we want to make sure we are coming with, these are the issues that we know exist and how we can also be a part of assisting them on making changes in how they interact with our loved ones. Now, one of the things that was said last time, we started talking about a little bit about how we as parents prepare our family members or those who are supporters, how we, they talked about the making sure the community is aware that someone has autism or a hearing impairment. And one of the things was the IDs. Now, if you are an adult and you could be a youth, but your ID, your DC ID, there's options where you can share. It's not, you're not obligated to, but you have the option of sharing what those disabilities are. And one of the comments was about, that would be a way to let the police know. But the issue is that if the person's not carrying it, and then if it's on them, how do you get them to share it with you, right? Which causes an interaction, right? So that person has to be willing to share that, know what it is, and be able to share that before, in this case, a scenario for a police officer even to know how to interact. So catch what I'm saying is that there's work to be done of training the police on what these different disabilities and potential things that they need to know about a person with autism or with intellectual developmental disability, what they're needing to be observant of so that they can make, a lot of times, a very quick call on how they need to interact with a person. So I'm sure I have several people that, well, I believe I do, that would like to share on what are those bullets, in a sense, those items that, as she comes to be a part of the council, what those may be. And I hear someone saying, Rhonda, and
That's
it looks like,
okay. You and I both attended meet and greet with
fire chat. Yeah, I just say that the fire chat.
Fire chat.
Shani, I see you. I'll get you after Daisy. Go ahead,
Okay.
Daisy.
One of the things that I thought about after that meeting, the best way for the police to know how to interact with our loved ones, I'll call it, some things trigger them into inappropriate behavior. If MPD created, or if there was some kind of a portal that caregivers could upload information about their loved ones, where if the police come across somebody, they get their name. There could be a section on their name, on that individual's record that says this person oftentimes can be triggered by. It could be, lights or sounds or whatever. But the family members know, or the caregivers know that individual. If there was somewhere where they could put that information in for the police department, so when that person's name comes up, that officer might be able to get a quick look at, if there's two officers together, and they're usually supposed to be, where they could kind of already know, okay, if this person starts displaying this, we need to think of it more as a mental health issue. Everything else is being uploaded into portals for information. Family members know their loved ones better than anybody else. And they're not going to call them right in the moment. But if there was a way, it's a process in that interaction where a policeman can look in that person's record and just see there's a highlight there, and then quickly just go to that section where the family has entered, these things trigger this person. It could decrease a lot of the damaging interactions they have if they know how to proceed. And only the family members would know that. There's no way people are going to register that themselves, the individual themselves. They're not going to register that. So if it's a way where the officer can look at a screen and see, okay, we know this now, and go forward with that.
Yeah.
It's a long thing, but
yeah,
okay.
I hear your point, of, if there's something they can access, but I in a portal, but I go back to this piece, and I'm saying it from a perspective as a parent. If the police officer, if it's a person who does not use words to communicate, right? And they don't know that they're talking about an ID, give me your ID so I can know your name, right? We got to drill back as a parent, you know what I'm saying? That how do we first teach our children, right? To share their name, to give the ID card or whatever, but also because if they're not able to capture that information, and I know a situation that happened like that, yeah, the police is there, but if they can't get their name, and it just so happened that somebody was nearby that knew the person's name, that kind of helped them to find their way back home, you know what I'm saying? But the thing is that the police officer still has to get the name, right? The police, even if he or she has a portal to go to or not, but if you don't know the person's name, so we're still back to what is the police officer? What do we give to share to the police officer when they come up to someone who is not able or is not accessible to their being able to communicate their name, to give their ID? What would we share, right? Of how they should handle that. That's the way I'm going to look at it. And that's coming down to the bare bones. Like, they don't have anything. What would we say to do? Okay. Who is that? Shawnee, excuse me. Go ahead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little concerned, but I shouldn't be. So DC has Smart 911. It's been in existence for 12 years. Okay. It is a portal. You can create a profile, a safety profile for each individual in your home, including pets.
Mm-hmm.
I would encourage all of you to do that. That's all we have right now. Okay. In addition to that, I personally don't agree with the IDs with the information. I'm raising a Black young boy. So even if he could give his ID, it looks different in the eyes of the police coming from him.
Mm-hmm.
IDs aren't normally asked. When you see individuals in the community that have disabilities that are getting approached by police, they don't ask for IDs, ever.
Mm-hmm.
What I would like to see is preventive measures. And I wish I could have been in that position to prevent what happened to my child. But Smart 911 should be a resource. I encourage you all to tell other people about it because it does exist. In addition to that, I would like to see air tags. I don't care where families put them on their individuals, whether it's the book bag, whether you clip it to their pants, their belt, around their neck. It can save time and it can save your child's life. There's also medical shoe tags. Literally any information you want, their name, their nickname, their phone number, your address, it can be engraved on those tags, and you literally put the shoelaces through them and they're attached on their shoestrings. Now, as far as the police, I think the police, not just the police, EMS as well, fire, I think there needs to be a real true discussion around services and training for all members. We're talking about sign language, which includes modified sign language. We're talking about devices. Some of our children or our adults have devices, but it's useless if EMS, fire, police come and they don't know how to use it. In addition to that, behavior therapy and services are available. We need to have a discussion around getting EMS, the police, and the fire trained by specialized and certified behavior specialists on how to deal, right? When they show up, just honestly, just awareness. Those observation skills as to what's going on, because all individuals with disabilities do not physically look like they have disabilities.
Correct. Yes.
And I'm only willing to be a part of these discussions if these things will be raised. I don't want to go back and forth about who's at fault, doing what, and those type of things. We really need to put more preventive measures in place. This is happening all around the world. It will continue to happen. Our children, you know, they get out of our sight, they get out of our home. You know, sometimes with us, you know, triggering behaviors can occur and we're in a community with them. So it's not just if they, you know, come upon a scene where there's an individual by themselves, they come upon a scene where the individual are with their family. And it's just chaos. Because there's so much going on and no one has the proper training to de-escalate not just the situation, but emotions. Parents are emotional. They don't want their children to be touched. They don't want their children to be scared, and they know best. But in a situation where you're dealing with the police and they intervene, they now give commands. And what we see is triggering behaviors. Police in the outside see it as aggressiveness. So I would like to see more conversations about preventive measures as the police department as a whole, as well as individual districts. I can't stress it enough. What I can tell you is if your child is an adult in a situation where they do have contact with the police, they will call Adult Protective Services. And it'll be very difficult for you to find a police report because they'll eventually put the police report in the individual's name, even if they're nonverbal. So this whole entire process, it needs to be broken down, and we need to repair it in a way that is beneficial, not just for our families, but for the communities that we live in, to help us or to help our individuals with special needs when they're in situations with the police. That's it.
All right, thank you, Shani. But it does speak to, even though when Daisy referred to the portal, which we know the Smart 911, I think Catherine put it in the chat, the actual link to it. But it still speaks to, okay, there's a portal, right? But how do we get the person's name? So, you know, if they're not able to share their name, they don't have it on their shoelace or the other measures that Shani shared with us. My thing is there a way within that Smart 911 is that can you take a picture of the person, right? And maybe a picture identification in the portal. to be able to identify that person if they're in the portal, right? If the person or the family has placed them in the portal. So thinking through those types of things. So as you can tell, we have a lot of work to do. But you know, if we don't do the work, we'll see us and our loved ones, as Johnny shared, that sometimes these things, or a lot of times these things are happening and we're standing right there. The parent, the supporter is standing right there, but before you know it, it goes from a 0 to 100, which I've seen that at Children's Hospital. You know, someone didn't know how to interact with someone with autism, and before you know, they called security. And now there's wrestling back and forth with a child when it really didn't need to come to that, right? And the family is standing there. So, so many things to think about, but yes, we're not gonna come before, or at least that's not what my intention is as a co-chair, is to come before, or her be included in a conversation with us, being the chief of police, is to go through, you know, a tit-tat back and forth on different issues. But what, again, like we're doing with the Medicaid, what's the solution? And here is what we are offering as preventative solutions to the issues, and being involved in what that training looks like. We even said, you know, at that fire chat, so we would be welcome to review, you know what I'm saying, whatever it is that you're putting together or be a part of. As for the training, us being a part of that process to review what they're training or offer the information that needs to be placed in that. And I think they really need to, and maybe they have this, and maybe someone could, maybe you all know, but is there someone within the police department that is working specifically with people with disabilities or accessibility issues? You know what I'm saying? Because there really needs to be. And maybe that's another recommendation, right? That there is someone that is working specifically in that area. And it may look different than what I'm stating, but maybe there's someone in that role and asking that question, and asking that question of what that person does to assist in interacting with our loved ones. Any other questions or comments? You can definitely, oh, there's the picture. You can definitely add pictures. The concern is the officer will even check the portal. That's where my point was. What if they don't even go to the portal, period? You know what I'm saying? But again, that's where the one thing I thought, if we use the portal, we can't get the ID, can't get the name, and none of any of that. Maybe if there's a picture they take, and hopefully that picture comes up in the portal if they go to it. Because guess what? Like the scene I seen at the hospital, there wasn't time to look in a portal. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? The situation went from a 0 to 100, you know? And even though the parent was there, see, this is the other key kicker, is that the parent was there, who could say, my child has autism, you know, please just take your, you know, and they're not listening, right? So there's a lot that we need to offer. As already said, they need to have some behavioral type of trainings on how to interact with our loved ones, and having it by qualified individuals to give that type of training to them, so they understand how to have that interaction when these different situations happen. Any other comments? Any other people that want to be a part of both of these committees, or one of these committees? One for Medicaid committee and one for police committee. Interventions.
Rhonda, quick question. How much time would be necessary or dedicated to the committees?
Right. Well, the big thing is that I would definitely say there's at least initially trying to get what the strategy is to bring back to the council as a whole, you know, of how we're moving forward. Now, obviously, when we speak to Middleton, you know what I'm saying, we're coming to him about the Medicaid, not to say we're not mentioning we have something else going on, but initially we want to come to the table with, here it is, and this is where our thoughts are, so we don't waste time, right? So once we have that interaction with them and they're able to say, you know, this is what we're going to work through, then I think we have more of a strategic plan, you know what I'm saying, of, okay, we need to meet because this is where we're moving, right? Because there's many things, I mean, with just these 3 bullets on each one of these, that's a lot of work in each one of those bullets, you know what I mean? It's not something that's gonna happen, overnight, right? It's gonna take time. So as for commitment, I would definitely say that you're looking at, one additional meeting with the committee, you know, potentially every month in addition to this meeting. I won't say it won't be like that all the time, but I think we have to figure out what we're doing and how we're moving forward on it. And once we get to the table, to those who make those decisions, I think it'll help to structure what that committee work might look like, right? That's just what I can offer right now. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that's for sure, because once the committee comes together, you all, whoever's on that committee, can figure out, how we want to do this, right? But we do need to know where we're going, right? We need to know what the vision is and where we're going. So you can't come together, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. So I don't want it to seem like I'm totally structuring it, because whoever's on that committee, you all have to think about your all's time, right? When you can meet and who's going to do what, and what's going to be brought to the council, the public meeting as a whole, right? So hopefully that answered your question. I know it wasn't specific, but to give you that it's
Yeah, it's fine.
every other
Okay,
week.
sign me up for the police one.
Okay.
Me
Okay.
too, Daisy Brown.
Thanks.
Okay, I got you already. All right, so what I am going to say though, is because we are trying to, I would like to have the committee come together, if it wasn't these 3 things we've already said, that we want to be able to issue this to her to say, these are the areas that we want to discuss. I want to come forward of, here it is, instead of her coming and then we're just kind of wasting time, right? We don't have the specifics. We want to be able to say, here we are, and this is what we want to discuss. And so that's what we need to do, because I don't want it just to waste of time and talking about individual situations. Not to say we don't need to talk about those individual situations, but we want to make sure we're making good use of the time for them to move forward on what we're asking, on what we're recommending, right? Okay, what time is it? Oh geez, 1:29. Okay, the other thing that I missed, there was comments that were in the registration about the police. And Catherine just told me that maybe about 10-15 minutes ago, so I missed those. But I will share those with the council if there's something that triggers for you all, you know what I'm saying, a comment or a question. If there is a few minutes, I don't know if she can put those on the screen or not. But I can at this moment. Was there any other questions? I might be able to quickly do it. Hold on here. I'm going to stop sharing this screen momentarily, and maybe I can quickly bring them up.
I could put
okay?
them in the chat if that helps,
Thank
because I
you.
don't have
Could
them
you
in a
do that?
good
Yeah.
spot.
Could you do that for me? And then I
yeah.
can quickly, and then everybody can read it. And we can go from there. Was there any other questions or comments that anyone had?
I would
But
like to be part of like the police committee, but
Mhm.
I don't know how much time it takes.
Mhm.
So I just don't want to commit without knowing,
right.
you know.
Right.
the-
I think that Craig probably will do a lot of work on that. You know what I'm saying? As I'm speaking as from the co-chair perspective, not to say I won't have input, but he'll probably be spearheading a lot of that conversation. As for the committee piece, and so I'm sure he has some other input to attach to the letter or email to the chief, inclusive of what we've discussed today and other days. And maybe it's a lot of email going back and forth, long as you're accessible to your email, right? If you're able to work that way, it doesn't always have to be face to face, right? But if you are responsive in email, that's one way to get things done, right? So I would definitely say, and Craig is definitely good at that. Discussing via email. So that, and Shawnee and Zeb and Daisy and Adrian, that will probably be this initial thing, is that we, put everything down that we've stated thus far as a council and what we've had in this meeting and shuffle that back and forth as he is getting the connection with the police officer to come to our public meeting. So that will cut down on, other time of your schedule. Were you able to get in the chat? Not Daisy.
No,
Catherine?
not-
Okay.
Yep,
If
it's
you
in there.
guys could read your chat, and I'm going to try to read it out loud for those who cannot access their chat. And so keep in mind, these are the raw comments and questions, right? So I haven't had a chance to read it. And
And
then,
unfortunately, I'll tell you that the bullets did not transfer. That would have
Okay.
broken it up a
That's
little
fine.
bit. So that makes it a little bit harder.
okay, I understand. Just keep in mind how strong they are and their absolute disregard for authority. It means nothing that you are a police officer. That was a comment. Communication techniques and using non-lethal methods when necessary to detain someone. That's a good one of what that looks like. Police training to become knowledgeable about men and women with intellectual disabilities. We definitely agree with that today. How can you distinguish a person with this is where I was saying, how do you distinguish a person with disability from other persons on first encounters? Well, we talked about that today. Interact and establish trust with disabled persons before there is a crisis. And lastly, I feel this process needs to be interagency effort to ensure that we are not just venting and creating system solutions and are creating system solutions. Totally agree. I think we all said that today. So even if that was the case, I'm going to shoot this out and then I'll conclude the matter. It's the police the police chief, and who else is at that table? The fire, I heard that, EMS, even though she's responsible for those, but I think we need to have representation from those areas at the meeting. So thank you. I think that's important when we talk to Craig to say, Craig, when she's coming, she needs to bring representation from all of those, which, think about that alone, us working on this. If we were just to take the police, the fire, what you do when there's a fire and how you get to talk to someone. I mean, there's, it's an animal, right? I mean, it's a lot, right? So it does take some committee work to see what direction we're going to take. But I think that's a very good point that we need to have those other 3 units, or the 3 units, I guess you want to call it, at the table as well at that meeting. So, okay. Any other questions, concerns? The Family Ties of DC has its last session on the Family Ties of DC Table Talk Advocacy Series. The last one is pertaining to the supports that are provided by the service coordinators and the providers. And that's on May 23rd at noon. So I will be sure to share that link with you all. And I think we've seen it several times, but we now have everyone's registration. So I'll be sure to send individual messages as well. Of the information. Thank you so much, everyone that stayed a little longer to conclude this meeting. It was productive. I like productive.
Nothing is our friend.
Yes, and so we'll be in touch. All right. Well, you all have a wonderful day, and we will be sending messages about our next meeting. And we did not talk about OMA because that was another priority, but we do need to talk about that because we wanted to say that we wanted to be separated from that, and that'll be another subject that Craig and I will be speaking with Middleton about. So those 2 things are big ones. The Medicaid and that is where we are going to take the time to do short presentation of who we are and those 2 priorities that we want him to help us with specifically. Okay. All right. Thank you all for participating today, and look for the future meeting notice for June. Wow. And happy Mother's Day to all the mothers.
Woohoo, happy Mother's
Thanks,
Day.
same to you.